Welcome back. We're joined with Pat McGuigan from CapitalBeatOK.com. Thanks so much for being here, as usual. End of Sunshine Week, we're talking about government transparency, and you kind of used this in a report this week about schools and turning around. Talk a little bit about that report.
Yeah, I'd been working on it for a while, and I decided this was probably the best possible week to unveil it. It helps make the point about what Sunshine Week is, which is a celebration not only by journalists, but by citizen advocacy groups in support of transparency, and that the government posts stuff online, do reports that we can read and study for ourselves and decide for ourselves what they mean. Well, I looked at some kind of sobering data. It has to do with federal Title I funds that are used particularly for turnaround programs or for what's called school improvement grants, SIGs. The good news is at 7 schools, since 2011, at 7 schools that have received these grants in the Oklahoma City Public School District, the one item of good news is U.S. Grant. And we've had good news from U.S. Grant for the last couple of years. I think that may be largely due to the principal, who's a charismatic leader, sometimes controversial with the teacher union, but a very effective school leader, Tammy Sanders. But having said that, the money had to have helped in leading Grant to a better performance. They went from a C+ to a B on the school's A to F grading scale that the state uses. This is all, by the way, State Department of Education data, the spending as well as the results. Now then, at Centennial High School, they were flat, Ds, both in 2012 and in 2013, and we'll see how they do in 2014. Then there were a total of 5 schools that dropped from Ds on the assessment to Fs, and those were Douglas Middle School, Oklahoma City and Centennial Middle School, Moon Elementary, Scheidler Elementary, and Roosevelt Elementary. The total spending spread out over the last 5 fiscal years is $27,566,250, and $7.9 million of that went to professional services, meaning the outside consultants that came in and did teacher training and work like that. Now, it's the job of the press sometimes in a free society to point out problems. This is not to say that there weren't individual kids that might have made some gains, or that there's not individual teachers that might have made improvement as a result of this spending. But $27.5 million is a lot of money, especially when you look at results that show things got better at 1, they stayed flat at 1, and they declined at 5. That's our job, is to raise questions like this, to put a little bit of a light heart on it. Some of those same kids may be familiar with the song that Tigger sings in the Winnie the Pooh stories. The wonderful thing about Tiggers is I'm the only one. Well, the wonderful thing about open records is they're there for all of us. And that's the point of Sunshine Week and of a report like this. It'll be interesting to see how the district and others respond, because I'd certainly like to hear the response on how we can do a better job for the children. Open records are there for all of us.
And accountability as well.
That's right.
Okay. Let's move on to our next topic, Pat. We're talking about the launch of the Family Policy Institute of Oklahoma, and they just had a luncheon, and they released a memorandum, Why Strong Families Still Matter. You were there. What'd you find out about this?
I learned a lot. Tim Tardy-Bono is the executive director. It's kind of interesting in a state like Oklahoma, pro-family, conservative, traditional values, that there hasn't been a group focused exclusively on family policy in recent years. Tardy-Bono is a veteran of Washington, D.C. He's trying to take an inclusive approach by talking to all kinds of people. And his bottom line message is that children, the data shows over and over again, children do better in intact families on all kinds of benchmarks, whether it's abuse and neglect, poverty, education, teen sex or premarital sex, and substance abuse. In all of those, intact families in the aggregate turn out better for kids. That doesn't mean there aren't exceptions. It means that's what the data indicates. Therefore, he, Senator Rod Standridge, Tom Newell, State Representative, and Representative Elise Hall, and Mark McCullough all talked about public policies that could be instituted or guided to do a better job of supporting families. Newell was very thoughtful in my interview with him, talking about the limits on what government can do. This really ultimately comes down to us and to the churches, but government can play a supportive rather than an impeding role in advancing children and stronger families. That's their message.
And that's very consistent with a lot of what we're seeing over at the Capitol as far as what's being talked about over there. Pat, thanks so much. Anything else? Any final thoughts for us today?
Well, I had a lot of fun St. Patrick's weekend, but that's a week ago, so we need to move on.
Time to move on. All right, thanks so much for being here as always. We'll be right back.